Um, we are recording it, and there will be a link that we will share via email after the webinar, probably sometime next week. We're expecting that our entire time together will run about an hour. We have about 30 minutes for presentations, and we've left the rest of the time for questions, your questions. We will stay on past an hour. We will stay on as long as needed to answer any and all of your questions. You will see that there are no cameras on our participants, as well as no chat. If you need live transcripts, that is available. There's a button at the bottom of your screen where you can choose to turn on subtitles or to view a transcript of today's presentation. So for questions, you are welcome to type in your questions at any time from when we start to the very end. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and that you can click on that, type your question in. There's also an upvote option. So if you see a question that you is already there, you can click on the little thumbs up and bump that to the top. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible live, but we may also do them within the chat function. And so that concludes our housekeeping. I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to our presentation. We're going to start with Leslie Bannigan and Victoria Lado, who are with the Kitsap County Public Health District.
Did you know that you can get more life out of a septic system by inspecting the tank every 3 years and pumping when needed? Hi, folks. I'm Leslie Bannigan. We're environmental health specialists with Kitsap Public Health District, where we find and fix fecal pollution sources so they don't make people sick. We also help people get the most life possible from their septic system investment. And we're here today to help you get pumped for septic tank pumping. Close your eyes and imagine you're hosting a backyard barbecue. Everyone's having a great time, and the kitchen and bathroom are getting plenty of use. Suddenly, you smell a lingering odor, and it's definitely not the delicious smell of searing meat on the barbecue. You decide to sniff out the source. And what do you find? Sewage bubbling up from your septic tank. Today, we're going to share some tips to prevent this from happening to you. We want you to get the most life possible from your septic system because it's a big investment. When we meet with people, we've noticed some common barriers or reasons why maintenance is postponed. Many don't know how their systems work and how to take care of it. Some are afraid of problems and costs. We struggle with these barriers too, and we want to help you overcome them by sharing some simple steps and real-life stories to help you get the most life possible from your septic system. The important things are to know how it works, know how to maintain it, avoid water overload, avoid strong waste, and prevent physical damage.
So let's start with how a septic system works. Here is a standard gravity system. The basics are the same, even if you have a more complicated alternative septic system. You can see how all the house wastewater flows through a septic tank where solids settle, allowing just clear wastewater to go through to the drain field soils. This is a slide of a one-compartment septic tank. Sewage flows into the tank through the inlet baffle. The inlet baffle is a pipe that turns the water 90 degrees so the scum layer floats to the top and the sludge settles to the bottom. Baffles keep the stronger scum and sludge solids in the tank, so they don't plug pipes or drain field soils. Only the clearer wastewater in the middle of the tank, called effluent, flows to the drain field. Bacteria in your digested food waste helps break down the solids in the tank. If you want to do something nice for your septic system, eat a delicious meal and use the bathroom. The microbes from your body do all the work, so don't waste your money on septic system additives. Reduce the use of strong chemicals and cleaning products because they can kill those good microbes in your tank and drain field. It's very important to inspect septic tanks every 3 years and pump when about 1/3 full of scum and sludge. More complicated alternative systems require inspection at least every year. Here's a typical 2-compartment tank. The second compartment provides another layer of protection for your drain field because the scum and sludge solids settle out more. Protect your septic system and prevent your drain field from early clogging by inspecting your septic tank and baffles every 3 years and pumping your tank when about 1/3 full of scum and sludge. A filter is sometimes added in the outlet baffle of the septic tank. These need regular service to prevent sewage overflows in your home or yard. Please reach out to me if you have any questions on how to safely clean your effluent filter. You can see the watertight risers on the tank lid. These give easy access so you don't have to dig up your septic tank every time it needs service. It is very important to secure your tank lids to prevent the tragedy of kids or pets falling in. Here is a close-up look down at the center wall inside a 2-compartment septic tank. You can see the white baffle that straddles the 2 compartments. The wastewater effluent leaves the tank, flowing through a watertight pipe into a distribution box. You can see the 2-inch wastewater inlet pipe going into the D box. 4 larger pipes flow to the drain field legs. Inside those pipes, you can see the round black levelers that adjust to help effluent flow equally to the drain field legs. Sometimes distribution boxes deteriorate or fill with sludge or roots. Protect your D box from plant and tree roots. Here's a video of wastewater flowing into a distribution box from a septic tank. So we've shown you how wastewater is collected and transported through the septic tank and distribution box. Now let's talk about wastewater treatment. Soil can do an amazing job of filtering and treating wastewater. Soil microbes gobble up waste particles as wastewater effluent wicks through unsaturated soil. Septic systems are carefully designed and drain fields are located to make sure there's enough soil to treat the wastewater. State and local laws permit different systems depending on soil type and depth and setbacks to wells and surface water. Most of us in Washington rely on groundwater for drinking. That's why we need to make sure wastewater is treated by the septic system soils so the bugs and sewage don't make us sick. When you pump water from a well, it develops a cone of depression because it draws in groundwater from around it. It's very important to have your septic set back from wells and to keep your septic system working well so that you don't draw untreated sewage into your drinking water. Here's a gravel and perforated pipe drain field. Perforated pipe has holes in it to allow wastewater effluent to move into the gravel and soils. This is a rare look inside a gravelless drain field. These chambers are used when clean gravel is hard to find or on sites with difficult access. This photo shows a distribution box and transport lines for a gravity drain field, where wastewater effluent is distributed equally to each drain field leg. The observation ports allow you to see inside the drain field from above the ground to find out if the system is working the way it was designed. Gravity drain fields with serial distribution like this are typically used on slopes. Sewage completely fills the top of the drain field first. Only when the top leg is full does it step down or overflow into the next leg. Be sure to manage trees and shrubs near the step downs to prevent damage. Pressure distribution systems divide wastewater effluent into 6 or more doses a day. The doses are pumped to the drain field through pressurized drain field lines that distribute the wastewater dose equally throughout the whole drain field. Excuse me. This more complicated alternative design is used where soil isn't deep enough to treat the effluent through gravity distribution. Pressure distribution systems require annual maintenance because they can easily become clogged without it.
Now that you know how a septic system works, let's look at some septic system failures. This one has the typical foul-smelling, slimy, blackish-gray water surfacing in the drain field. This one also has standing water and soggy soils in the drain field area. Some other things to look for are wet spots in dry weather, gray water, laundry or sink water discharging to the ground or surface waters, or gurgling sounds, slow drainage, or backups in plumbing caused by a slow drain field. This tank is a hazard because it's open to the ground surface where people and pets can fall in and flies can transport waste out. See the stained area on the green septic tank riser and signs of moisture on the otherwise dry ground? These are signs of a septic tank overflow that has partially dried. Here we confirmed that sewage was leaking into the lake by flushing red dye in the house toilet and finding it coming out in the lake. We found high bacteria counts at this bulkhead drain, and dye testing the house confirmed that it was sewage leaking out onto the beach. Now that you know how a septic system works and what a failure looks like, here's how you find records for your septic system. Permit and maintenance records have important information about where your system parts are located and your water budget, or how much water the system was designed to treat each day. Go to www.kitsappublichealth.org. Find the wells and septic section at the bottom of the page, and you can search for property records, application and permit status, and septic maintenance records. The sewage permit is your guide to the size and location of your system. This one's sized for 3 bedrooms at 360 gallons per day. The as-built drawing at the bottom shows the approximate location and size of the septic system. This one shows the house, septic tank, distribution box, and 3 60-foot drain field legs. Here's the building site application. This is the septic system plan based on water budget, soil type and depth, and required setbacks. The building site application includes a plot plan showing the proposed layout of the system. Modern building site applications dedicate a reserve area for septic system replacement when needed. If you have trouble finding your septic records or your water budget, please reach out to me or Victoria. Next, I'll share a few stories to highlight the importance of regular maintenance and some simple fixes to get a system back on track. Leaky toilets can fail septic systems. My family had an old basement toilet that we didn't use. One day, my husband used it and forgot to jiggle the handle. We were lucky that our pump tank alarm let us know about the leak before sewage came up in our backyard. Here's another way to protect your system from water overload. See the arrow on the right? This is directing rainwater from the roof right to the septic tank, and it can wash surface water and sediment into the tank and drain field. You need to make sure that your roof water is located at least 10 feet away on the downhill side from your tanks and drain field. When we met the owner of this rental property, he was proud that the tank hadn't been pumped in nearly 20 years. He didn't even pump his own septic tank until it backed up in the house, making a big mess inside his house. After talking with us, he pumped both tanks. The rental property tank was almost completely full of solids. This is living in the danger zone. You wouldn't wait for problems to change the oil in your car, and you shouldn't wait for problems to pump your septic tank. One important way to reduce stress on your system and you is to have your tank inspected every 3 years and pumped when it's 1/3 full of solids. Even with regular operation and maintenance, alternative systems can still get thick scum and sludge. One of my friends recently had high scum and sludge in one tank compartment. The pumper didn't empty it during 2 prior visits because they didn't want to remove internal parts. During the next checkup, it was still 80 to 90% full of solids. Yikes, that's not good. If you have an alternative system like this, check with the pumper to see if your maintenance person needs to be on hand during pumping. No matter what type of system you have, you can prevent excessive scum and sludge buildup. Always do scheduled maintenance. Keep food scraps from going down the drain and don't use garbage disposers. Be sure to spread out your laundry loads so the fibers from your clothes have time to settle out in the tank. And avoid using strong chemicals like bleach, ammonia, liquid drain openers, and harsh cleaners because they slow or stop normal processes by killing the good microbes in your tank and drain field. The tool shown in this video is called a sludge judge, and it's measuring the sludge layer in the tank. There was a very thick sludge layer, which isn't good for the drain field. We helped the owner of this system overcome her fear of unknown costs. She was worried, but led us to the wet spot in her yard. She put on her boots and gloves and slogged through the sewagey mess to find the outlet baffle access. She used a metal fence stake to pry off the cap and fish out the filter. The filter hadn't been cleaned in 7 years. She was one of the lucky ones. A clean filter and septic tank pumping was all it took to get this system back on track. When the owner of this system had his tank pumped, the water level was too high. Sometimes this happens when components have settled or are damaged, and sometimes it happens when the drain field isn't taking water at the designed rate. He used his contractor experience to find the problem and was delighted it was a bent transport line instead of a drain field problem. Protect your system from damage caused by parking, driving, burning, or pasturing large animals, because septic systems are often buried shallowly. Less toxic cleaning alternatives are safer for your family and your septic system. Be aware that green, natural, eco, and bio are all unregulated marketing terms. Commercial green cleaning products are not required to list all ingredients on the label, and they may contain harmful ingredients. You can also save money by using fewer harsh cleaning products. Instead, you can use greener options like vinegar, baking soda, oxygenated cleaner, and Castile soap. But remember that green cleaning alternatives are still chemicals. For safety, it's important to label all cleaning products that you make and not reuse cleaning product bottles. We recommend physical cleaning tools that work by elbow grease. Microfiber cloths clean smooth surfaces, dry or wet. Squeegees prevent shower scum. Pumice stones remove stains. And drain cleaning tools made of flexible plastic with barbed edges remove hair and soap scum from drains. Get rid of your old chemicals at the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Facility. You can drop off chemicals that you don't need anymore to the Free to a Good Home part of the facility. It's located at 5551 Southwest Imperial Way, and it's open Thursday through Saturday from 10 to 4. To summarize, protect your septic system investment. Know how to maintain it, avoid water overload, avoid strong waste, and prevent physical damage.
Thank you, Leslie and Victoria. So as a reminder, we are holding our Q&A session to the very end. I see that there are a few questions already. Go ahead and continue to drop those into that form, and we'll answer all the questions when our presentations are done. And so now I would like to introduce you to Paul Cush. Paul is a master gardener with WSU Extension Kitsap, and he has been a master gardener for, I believe, 8 years now. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes.
All right. So go ahead, Paul.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about planting over and around your septic tanks and your drain fields. First off, there are 6 key elements to your planning process. Know your system and where it's located. And if you don't know, check with the Kitsap County Health. Protect your components from damage. Roots cause more damage than shovels. Protect your soil from compaction. Don't drive on it. Choose your plants carefully. Consider the plant sizes at maturity and not just what you see at the nursery. Nursery tags show 3 to 5 years of growth, not 7 to 10 if you plan to be at the house that long. Locate your large plants and trees away from your components and drain field. Never plant a tree or shrub with aggressive roots near your system or drain field lines. Let me repeat, never plant an aggressive plant near your equipment. Aggressive plants are very damaging. Your tank and your drain lines can get plugged just like this perforated line. Only choose shallow rooted plants. Always avoid strong woody plants like willows and cedars that have large root systems. I know, I hate mowing too, but lawns are the best. Shallow root systems drain well and are easy to replace if you have to do any repair. There are a number of alternatives to lawns that you might consider. Eco lawns are my favorite. Nothing better than a field of little English daisies mixed in with your grass. It also helps you reduce the amount of mowing you need to do. Wildflowers are a common drain field planting. Low maintenance, nice to look at, easy to reseed, and most of them actually self-seed. Here's a picture of a shallow, low maintenance perennial garden over top of a drain field. It is always acceptable to be creative and hide your components. None of us like to see those tank and D-box lids in the middle of our garden. But make sure you can still get at them to inspect. Even a simple decorative pot on the lid in the lawn can remove an eyesore. Creating a small garden around a lid is acceptable with the correct plants. Or planting or creating a mosaic on the lids can change the appearance in your garden. But don't hide it too well. You will need to find them in the future, I guarantee it. Don't cover with heavy permanent objects. Don't cover with concrete, plastic sheeting, or weed cloth. These are living, breathing systems that need to be open to the environment. Maintain easy access at all times. You don't want to have to tear up your garden any more than you have to. You should be pumping every 3 years. Kitsap County hard surface requirement is 10 feet away from your tank. No concrete patios over your tanks. You regret it later if you have to jackhammer it up. I always get the question about vegetable gardens. Vegetable gardens should never be planted on top of the drain field. Remember, this is a living, breathing ecosystem for processing your household effluent. Gardens need frequent water. Overwatering will destroy your drain field. Rototilling and turning the soil disrupts the surface and can damage your drain field. Regular access creates compaction. Seasonal planting and replanting can damage the components. But most of all, septic effluent contains human pathogens. System failures could put raw sewage into the soil, not what you want to be feeding your plants and your vegetables. So plant a lawn and save yourself a lot of potential trouble in the future. Okay, I have really just told you what you can't do except for grass. There are plants that you can use. You can contact Master Gardener's Clinic at mastergardenerkitsap@gmail and ask for a list of potential plants that you can plant. You can also call our hotline at 360-228-7320. And you can go to the extension office extension noted on this screen. We look forward to hearing from you and look forward to getting your questions. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we have just one last part for our presentation, and that is around the topic of toilet paper. We get a lot of questions about what toilet paper is best for your septic systems. So I'm gonna try to share a video that covers the topic. We've had some technical issues with the video, with the sound, so I'm gonna try and make this work. And if not, we'll definitely just give you an overview and give you a link to the video afterwards. So let me just stop sharing this screen and try sharing the video now.
Hi, I'm Leslie.
And I'm Cammie.
We're coming to you from our lab to answer the age-old question of which toilet paper is best for septic systems. So let's get to the bottom of this.
Leslie, why does it matter what kind of toilet paper people use when they're on a septic system?
Well, toilet paper is made out of wood fibers that are difficult to break down in your septic system. Septic systems are designed so that those fibers and solids settle out in the tank so they don't clog drainfield soils. We want to choose a toilet paper that stays in the tank. It should either float to the top or sink to the bottom.
I don't want to be a party pooper, but there are a lot of toilet papers to choose from. How do you know which one is best?
Well, so here's where we all get to tap into our inner scientist. Because the best way to know which toilet paper to use is to test your toilet paper at home. And if you don't know how to do that, we've got your backside. Testing your toilet paper is easy. Grab an empty jar, toilet paper, and water.
We've got few types of toilet paper to try. I've got a triple ply plush toilet paper that I'm going to call Ultra Tushy Soft.
Fill your jar with water, crumple up a couple squares of toilet paper, put on the lid, and here's where I like to do a little dance that imitates the flow of water. Around the toilet bowl, down the drain pipe, out into the kitchen. Phew, I feel flushed.
That was a smooth move, Leslie. Shall we see how our toilet paper held together after being swirled?
Yes, we want the toilet paper to stay together and either float to the top or sink to the bottom.
So it looks like these did pretty good. Is our experiment done?
No, ideally, you let the toilet paper sit for a week or so. We have a few jars ready to show you. These have all done pretty well. For the most part, the toilet paper has stayed together. Here's an example of a one-ply bargain brand that completely disintegrated. We wanted to be able to show you a TP that falls apart. And this one is a grocery bargain brand. At first glance, this one looks like it stayed together. But if you look closely, you can see that there are a lot of fibers floating throughout the jar. If there are fibers floating throughout the jar, then they're probably floating throughout the tank where they could be discharged to the drain field. So the bottom line is test your TP at home. The less you use, the better. And lastly, regular inspections and pumping when needed can ensure a long, happy life for your septic system. If you have questions, please contact Kitsap Public Health District.
All right, thank you. I hope that worked well technically on your end. And now we are going to get to our raffle. We had indicated that we were going to offer 3 green cleaning kits to participants at our webinar. And so Amy is the one who did the drawing. If you want to go ahead and name off the names, Amy, we'll announce that.
Yeah, so we have David Mowbray, Aaron Devato, and Ed Wicks.
Awesome, thank you. So if you won a green cleaning kit, we will get a hold of you after the webinar and arrange for a way to get that to you. And Amy, do you want to share what's in it? Your screen is blurred, so I couldn't see.
Yeah, my screen is blurred, so I'll try. Let's see. There's some bottles to make your own green cleaning stuff, a multi-purpose cleaner with cast iron soap and a window cleaner with vinegar, baking soda. And of course, you know, we love to use the elbow grease. So we have a squeegee, a zip it, and a microfiber, as well as a pumice stone that was added this year. And if you go to cleanwaterkitsup.org, they have a webpage with how to make your own greening kits at home.
Great, thank you. And now we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Q&A. So I'm going to open up the Q&A screen, and this is great. We have a toilet paper question right off the bat for you, Leslie and Victoria. So, is it better to use RV toilet paper with a septic tank?
I would say the answer is no, because RV toilet paper is designed to break down completely and to form a slurry that flows through your pipes so that it gets to the pump station or sewer. Whereas for a septic system, what you want it to do is hold together and be either at the top of the tank or the bottom. So it should be at the top of your jar or at the bottom of your jar, not throughout your jar. We didn't do RV toilet paper, but when we did a couple of the bargain brands, what we found is they fell apart and they made a slurry throughout the jar. That's what RV toilet paper does. But we don't want that with the septic. We really want that to stay together more toward the top of the tank or toward the bottom of the tank, or the top of your jar or bottom of your jar.
Okay, and we have a question that hopefully we answered, but here it is again. Can you plant over your septic tank? Is it safe to have trees around your tank?
Well, I guess I can answer that. No, you can plant around your septic tank with plants that have low root system, small root system. No, you cannot plant trees around your system. Tree root systems grow out to the perimeter of the canopy of the tree. And so that's why we say at least 15 feet away from your system, plant trees. If the canopy on your tree is going to be that large, it's going to get right into your tank.
Okay, is Ridex treatment a useful tool to keep my septic healthy?
So I'll take this one. Kind of mentioned this earlier, but there's actually no scientific or experimental proof that shows that additives really do much. The only anecdotal evidence that we have heard has been if you have a family member that's taking antibiotics or chemotherapy drugs, those things can be particularly hard on a system. That might be the only time you'd want to consider it. But otherwise, your body does all the hard work. Just, like when you eat a meal and you use the restroom, your gut is providing those microbes that you want in your tank. So, so unless you've got one of those extraneous examples, save your money, because there's no evidence that they really do anything for your tank or your system.
Thank you. I have a gravity drain field from 1995 with transport pipes, and it does not have inspection ports. Do you think it would be worthwhile to have inspection ports installed?
That's really going to depend on your situation. You can add inspection ports. You can also look at the history of the system to see whether or not it's had challenges in the past. And the things I usually look for are past inspection reports. I look to see the amount of solids that were found in the tank. And those are the kind of things that typically make longevity better as compared to adding inspection ports after the fact. My only concern would be if you're already having issues with the drain field and you already have the sewage is kind of climbing up and standing in the drain field a little bit, you may inadvertently give it a route to come to the surface, and you don't really want to do that.
Okay. Our leach field seems to have dips in some places, and mowing is a bit challenging. Can those dips be covered with some dirt to level it out without damage?
I would say yes, just make sure you're using a sandy loam soil. Do not use any really tight clay soils because those are the ones that will kind of form a little bit of a rice paddy there. You really want to get a nice breathable sandy loam soil and use the minimum amount. You don't want to put 2 feet over the drain field. The drain field needs to breathe. The microbes in the drain field are oxygen loving. And so the more oxygen they get, the better they do. And so we tend to put those drain fields up very high in the soil profile and the soil surface. And so you don't want to cover it with too much. And you want to make sure that what you do cover it with is very breathable and that it will grow grass. And I would plant the grass at the same time.
Okay. Is there a list of recommended plants?
There is. The master gardeners have a list that they'll send a message to Master Gardener Kitsap at Gmail, or the phone number that was listed on the program. You can leave a message. We will send you, via email, a list of plants of all different types that are recommended for over and around your drain fields.
Okay. How do I locate my drain field?
Well, at Kitsap Public Health, we do have records of all permits. We actually scanned them about 10 years ago and they're all in the system now. And so you should be able to find records of the system. And if you don't find records of the system, there are still some tips and tricks that we can help you with. You can contact us if you're having troubles finding either records or the location, but typically that your system will be outside of your kitchen and bathroom where your plumbing exits the house. And sometimes you'll see a vent up on the roof up above there, and that's the side of the house that the tank will be on. And then from there, you sometimes you need to look during dry weather. This might be a great time because it's so dry right now. We haven't had rain, and you may be able to see those drain field legs. You'll see a greener stripes in the soil.
Okay. I would still like to know how to tell when a system is failing.
Well, a septic system is failing when it's either backing up in the house due to a slow drain field, or when it's surfacing either in the yard or it is being transported by a pipe out somewhere to a stream or to the ground surface. As long as the sewage is being treated underneath the ground, things are working well. But as soon as it surfaces from the ground or it enters water, that's when we stop treatment. And so if you have challenges with your septic, please give us a call. We're happy to look up your records and make tips and suggestions. Typically, there are some systems that have problems during the summer months, and because they're being used more. And there are other systems that have challenges during the winter months. And typically those are challenged because they have roof drains that are going over their tanks and drain field areas. So those are typically some of the challenges for septic. The other thing is if you're using a lot of water on one day, so you're doing 6 loads of laundry on one day, you may see sewage surfacing above your tank on that day. And that would be considered a failure. Anytime sewage is coming up from underneath the ground or backing up in the residence, it's considered a failure.
Okay. Is bamboo toilet paper okay?
We actually tested bamboo toilet paper and it came out, the one we tested came out the same as the other types. But my recommendation again is put on your inner scientist and get yourself a jar and some water and a couple sheets of toilet paper and do your test at home. You don't want to shake it up too much. You just want to kind of make it, pretend like it's sliding down your pipes down into your septic tank. And I see the next question about Costco brand TP. We cannot recommend any TP specifically, but what we can recommend is test your toilet paper at home. And you could do a couple different varieties, let them sit for the first 24 hours, look at them, and then look at them again about a week later.
Okay, we replaced our 2 primary toilets with bidets. What effect will this have on our septic system?
Well, you'll have less toilet paper in there. You may have a little more water. So that's something that you kind of want to look at is your water budget. Depending on how many bedrooms are in your house, we design them for 120 gallons per bedroom per day. And so depending on how many folks are in the house as well and how much you use the bidet, a lot of times if you're on a well, it's hard to know. But a lot of times you can, if you're on public water, you can find out what your use is.
Okay, what about ground systems, alternative systems? I'm not sure what the question is beyond that.
Well, the only thing I can think of is, so we have standard systems, which we consider just gravity systems or pump to gravity. Anything that's a little higher tech where there are pressurized components or pre-treatment components, we consider those alternative systems. They just have a little more bells and whistles to them, and we require that they have ongoing operation and maintenance because we've seen that we can fix simple problems early on and save people money.
Okay, if effluent layer is what is sent out to the drain field, what happens to the scum layer and sludge layer over time? Does this just build up until it is time to pump out the septic tank?
It does. There is some colonization of the scum and sludge layer with the microbes from your body, which is we use instead of the additives. But that scum and sludge breaks down very slowly. And so depending on how much you're accumulating, it can definitely build up. And that's why we recommend inspect your tank every 3 years and pump it when it's a third full of scum and sludge. And the reason for that is because if you don't do that, a stronger strength waste goes out to the drain field and it plugs up pipes and soils quicker.
Our septic system was installed in 1967. We've lived here for 3.5 years. The system was pumped and inspected when we moved in. We have an obvious lid to the tank, but have not noticed any other pipes as shown on the drawings. Is this an issue?
No, because back in 1967, we did not require observation ports, so that you will rarely see them on 1967 systems. My recommendation with the 1967 system is make sure you're maintaining it properly. Make sure that you're inspecting the tank every 3 years to make sure that the solids are not high in the tank and traveling downstream into distribution boxes and drain fields to plug things up downstream. The other thing you can do is make sure that your roof drains are routed away from tanks and drain fields at least 10 feet on the downhill side, because sometimes those older systems, things have been changed with the house, the roof drains have been added or changed, and sometimes you'll see they'll be routed right over the system. If you have specific questions about that system, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Do root killers help?
Root killers help, but if you have a vigorous tree that is close by, what would you say, Paul?
I'd say get the tree out.
We see them all the time. I just saw
Yep.
one last week where big
Yep.
roots are just taking over, and it's at the distribution box, but there are also big roots in the drain field. I saw one about 2 weeks ago where both legs of the drain field were cut off by a huge cedar tree that is now this giant 6-foot mound, and the drain field is just it's not able to it's actually failing its surfacing during even this dry weather because it's just there's no more soil to filter the waste.
Okay, I'm going to keep plugging forward with our questions. I did want to let everybody know that when you leave today's webinar, there will be a survey that pops up. We hope that you'll provide us with feedback on that survey. Also included on that survey is if you would like a site visit from Leslie and Victoria, you can input your email address and let us know, and they would be happy to coordinate a time to come out and talk with you about your septic system and address any sort of questions that you have. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that is available as an option for you. I hope as you've learned from today's presentation, they're very friendly folks and happy to come out and help. We are going to keep going forward with questions, so feel free to stay on as long as you like, and we're gonna plug forward. So Paul, here's a good question for you.
Yeah,
Are plants like rhododendrons, woody bushes, too tree-like to have in a septic area?
yes, they are a woody. plant, and they do have very aggressive roots, although they are shallow roots, but they will go right to your drain lines, no question.
Seeking the water.
Taking the water. Yep.
Are septic pumping companies supposed to send the reports to the county or the health district? Is that how you get a history of the system?
Yes, they are. And we actually come out and meet with folks and give them information when we see deficiencies that they need to be addressing. What we do is we bring out a copy of their permit records and their maintenance records. We explain what they're telling them, and we can help them through the process and provide free technical assistance.
Okay, I have had periodic episodes in the last few years when a foul smell was noticed around the septic area. 3 companies have come out to inspect possible sources. None of them have found an exact cause. The only suggestion they provided was to add a carbon air filter lid to the main tank in hopes it would prevent the stinky air. We did this and it helped some, but about once or twice, mostly during winters, we will still get a little smelly air. Any thoughts?
Those are tough ones. I've had a couple of them like that, and it can be a bunch of different things. It could be the kind of system that has a pre-treatment or an aeration unit, and sometimes those have a little smell to them. But it also could be that I've had situations before where typically sewage does not really smell really bad. It smells earthy with a little bit of sweetness from laundry. And if it smells knock you dead bad, usually that means there's a lot of cleaning products or some type of chemicals that have been used in the system. For example, the Subaru in Gorst, back in the olden days before they got on sewer, they were on a septic system. And every so often that septic system would get failed and we'd pop the tank. It would be surfacing in the drain field. We'd open up the tank and it would knock us dead. And we finally tracked it back to the floor cleaners were dumping their floor chemicals into the tank after they were done, and it would fail the system every time. And now they're on sewer, so it's not a big deal. So it could be something like that. Or it could be something as simple as where your vents are located. It could be that maybe your bathroom vent is next to your tank vent. And I've seen that before where sometimes you'll turn on the fan in the bathroom and it'll just pull in those odors. The other thing is it could be maybe after a lot of water use, like laundry use and big tubs and showers. And if that's the case, that might mean something a little different. So I'd strongly recommend get in touch with us and we can do a little research on your system and see what thing it might be.
Thank you. I live in unincorporated Kitsap County and have a gravity septic system. Is my system required or only recommended to be inspected, and at what interval?
We require that they get inspected every 3 years, but we don't enforce that unless you have a permit or a building clearance or something that, or a house sale. That's when we will, and even then we don't enforce it. We strongly recommend it for protection. You know, permits protect you, and so does pumping.
Should I be concerned with 40-foot mature trees close to my drain field?
Well, that's debatable. It depends on how new your house is. Your drain field should have been sited correctly, and the installer should have removed the trees that would jeopardize the system. If it's on an older system where the trees now have grown up and are encroaching or alongside your drain lines, then you should be concerned. Those roots will be going into, particularly out into your drain field.
Well, and it may be depending on how large those trees are. What I explained to my folks that had the big cedar tree is even if they remove the tree at this point, the tree has taken up all the soil and it's now all just a big root ball. And there is no more soil there to filter and treat the waste. And so you can't really relocate something in that same bed because there's no soil left to do the treatment. So, you know, it's kind of site by site, case by case. We've seen them before where they cut off drain fields way up at the beginning. And so that doesn't really work well. Sometimes they're way at the end. Sometimes that works a little better. My recommendation for everyone is set aside money for your reserve area, because I had to put mine in 10 years ago. My house was built in 1969. And it's just something, just like a roof. It's something you want to set aside resources so that you have them available to you when you need them. Now, there are a couple of resources that are available. One is called the Craft 3 Water Quality Loan Program. And then the USDA Rural Development Program can also do, you can do applications there as well. We always recommend checking with your own financial institutions as well. But if you have specific questions about your system, we're happy to come out and take a look on site.
Is it a bad sign to have greener lines over the drain field?
No, all that means is that the drain field is up in the top part of the soil where we want to see it. And really seeing greenness or lush vegetation, that's not a problem. It's when it's soggy and wet, that's when you have issues. Is if you're walking through it and it's mushy or soggy or soft, that's when we're looking for issues. But just being green, that's the way we really want it. You're adding water and nutrients into that soil box, and it's showing you that it's taking those up.
If I decide to subdivide my property, if the existing septic system is large enough, can it be shared between two properties?
Typically, no, without some type of a waiver. Typically, each residential unit has to have their own septic system. And we do have a policy on our website. It's called the Special Residential Circumstances Policy for things like accessory dwelling units or plumbing in garages or construction living quarters, those kind of guest houses, those kinds of things. But if you have specific questions about that, please let us know, and we'll refer you to our drinking water on-site program, and they'll let you know what the rules are. But typically the rules are 1 drain field per residence.
Okay, you say not to plant trees in the drain field, but you didn't mention existing trees. My drain field was permitted to be built among trees. I rake up pine cones, pull new baby trees that grow. Any advice?
I didn't know they did that, Leslie. Do they really allow drain lines to be put among trees anymore?
You do see them. We try not to put them in like that, but you do
Right.
see them. And typically what happens is they're tiny little seedlings when they first go in, and they just grow vigorously because that water source and the nutrient source just really helps them grow a lot quicker than they normally would. But that's why we're trying to get the word out that you really don't want to let trees grow within 15, 20 feet of any of your components, because it just causes you extra maintenance and problems down the road.
Can I plant a raised bed garden over the drain field if I'm not tilling the soil?
Tilling is not one of the issues, but more compaction. If you're putting a raised bed out there, you're going to be walking on the top of that drain field, and eventually you're going to create problems. So no, do not put your raised bed garden over the top of your drain field.
And then the other reason is if and when, like if you have a day when you used extra water and there's a lot of water up in that drain field, your roots might be right down in that sewage water, and you don't want to eat anything that's been raised or touched sewage water.
Yep.
Is a mechanical system considered an alternative system? And is there anything different with the maintenance?
A gravity system is what we consider a conventional system. So a gravity and a pump to gravity system are considered conventional, and maybe you could call that mechanical. Basically, it's it flows by gravity, or there's a pump that takes it to a drain field where it flows by gravity, and then by gravity it is distributed into the drain field legs. An alternative system typically has doses. It'll divide the wastewater up in 6 or more doses a day and send it to the drain field, pressurizing it throughout the whole drain field. So alternative systems have more bells and whistles. They have more pumps and controls, and they are typically more expensive. And so we want to make sure they're working properly, and we can typically catch problems if we take a look at them either every 6 months or every year. Year for pressure systems, every 6 months for aerobic treatment unit systems, or I believe new waters.
Is an 1,100 gallon tank large enough for 3 bedrooms?
This really depends on this, if it's new construction or when the system was permitted. So ask us that on basically the rules that were in effect at the time of the permit issuance. Those are the rules that are in effect until the system fails. So depending on what the rules were, the year that it was actually installed, that's what's going to depend on the size of the tank. But typically an 1,100 gallon tank is typical.
Are system inspectors different than septic pump out companies? I'm being concerned about being told I need to pump just to get the business.
We do have operation and maintenance specialists, and we have certified pumpers, and then we have certified designers. So designers design the systems and figure out what's wrong with systems. Installers install the systems, and they can do some maintenance on systems, and pumpers, they go out and they pump the systems, and they can do some simple maintenance as well. I'm not sure if I answered that question thoroughly enough. Add a new question if I didn't answer that whole part of that question.
Yeah, I think they just want to make sure they're not getting ripped off and being told they need to pump when they don't need to.
Give us a call. If you have questions, shoot us an email, give us a call. We're happy to take a look at your prior records, your maintenance records, to see whether or not it's time for you to have the system inspected.
Awesome. What about trees that stay small, like under 6 feet near the drain filled pipes?
Just don't put trees around your drain field pipes. It's, it's just not a good practice. You're asking for additional maintenance. You're asking for the system to fail in the future.
Is a greenhouse impactful if near the drain field?
Well, greenhouse to me are hard surface, just like concrete and everything else. So setback regulations are 10 feet.
I have a Glendon above ground and have been told I should never do more than 1 load of laundry a day, take baths infrequently, and never use Epsom salts in the bath. Is this the case?
I typically recommend to people that they only do 2 loads of laundry in any given day because of the fibers that are coming out in their washer. If you think about how many fibers are in your dryer, you got just as many in your washer. And washer filters are not designed very well to be able to easily remove fibers. So I always recommend doing 2 loads maximum, maybe 1 in the morning and 1 at night, to allow those fibers time to settle out in the tank. Depending on the size, how your system was sized, it sounds to me like you may have a 2-bedroom Glendon system, which is sized for 240 gallons a day. And typically we like you to stay about 80% of that. So that'd be about 200 to 210 something gallons a day. And so that's really the key, is to stay within that water budget. Epsom salts, I think it really depends on how much you're using of Epsom salts, because they are a suspended solid, and they will increase your wastewater strength. So, but if you're only using, a small amount per week, maybe if you're using, I don't know what you use, about 1/8 of a cup or something once a week, that's one thing. If you're using a cup a week, that's a whole different story. So you really do want to minimize the amount of chemicals that you're using, especially in those smaller systems that are sized for 2 bedrooms.
Okay, so we have just a couple more to get through here. Someone's got more of a comment than a question. They purchased their home in 2022, and the initial conveyance inspection passed the system. They paid for a scoping of the system and found their D-box was crushed and the system was failed. So scoping, although expensive, saved us a lot of money because the seller paid for a remediation.
Yeah, we always recommend that. Go ahead and scope them, because you just don't know what's under the ground.
Yeah. And then a question, are there other types of drain fields that don't take up as much space as long drain field runs? Towers, sand filters, or other types? If yes, what are the restrictions with respect to property lines?
There are other types of drain fields, but most of them take up the same amount of space. They may not take up the same amount of space at the unit itself that you're looking at, but the disposal box, the treatment and disposal box is probably just as big because you just can't load soil more than a certain amount. Now, some of the systems can do a lot of pre-treatment, and when you pre-treat soil or pre-treat waste, you sometimes can use a smaller drain field. But using smaller drain fields are not usually a good idea because it's easy to overload them with water when you have a lot of family over or an unusual event. So I always recommend trying to go with the biggest drain field you can do for your site.
And can you overhaul an existing drain field rather than putting a new drain field in the reserve area?
You can. We have something called a remediation. And we also have something called a minor repair. So had that prior property owner only found a crushed distribution box and it wasn't the whole drain field, they can actually replace that distribution box with a minor repair. We can show them how to do that, and it's all free. A remediation requires that a designer come out and diagnose the system and say, oh, it needs a certain amount replaced or certain, and then they apply to the health district. And then we approve that. And if we approve it, they can go ahead and do the remediation.
How can I find the septic alarm?
Typically, they're either right near the tank or they're near the electrical service to the tank. So usually it'll be, you'll see where the pump was wired from, and they should be right there near where the pump was wired. They should not be inside a building. They should be mounted on the outside of a building or outside so that people and you can hear it and see it, so that you don't have sewage, surfacing on the ground.
Okay. And then Claudia wrote that she has a 3-bedroom. She's the one who asked about the Epsom salts with her Glendon.
Okay, so then your water budget's a little bit bigger. It's 360 gallons a day. And you want to stay about 80% of that. So about 320-ish, something like that. And that sounds like something maybe you want to reach out to Victoria or me independently, and we can kind of review your system and see what the history's been and see if there are any red flags on there that we can see and share with you.
Okay. And I'm not seeing any more questions in our Q&A. So I believe we are done with our presentation. Oh wait, maybe I've got one more. How does a spa impact the drain field?
We would not recommend draining the spa into the drain field. That's a lot of water, and it has a lot of treatment to the water. And so that's something you kind of need to figure out, some type of a dry well situation or something where you can drain that water separately, or those are tough. We don't want to see that in the drain field because spa water is treated typically with either chlorine or bromine or some type of a disinfectant. And if it's not, it should be, because spas are notoriously bad for growing bacteria.
What are the rules with septics and putting in an ADU?
Well, we do have rules for that. It's called our special residential circumstances, and you can find it on our website at kitsappublichealth.org under the green septic system tab in the policies. It's called special residential circumstances, or reach out to Victoria or I, and we can send you a link.
Okay. And that wraps up our questions for today. As I mentioned, we have recorded this presentation, and we will be sending an email with a link to the presentation, to the video, and other resources for you. When you leave the presentation, you will also have a survey pop up that we hope you'll take, and there is a place for you to put in your email address in case you would like to get a site visit from Kitsap Public Health District. So Leslie, Victoria, and Paul, I want to thank you so much for your expertise and your time today. And to everybody else, I wish you a wonderful weekend. So thank you.
Thanks, Kim.